Welcome back to Likras. This week's Parshas Hashavua, our weekly Torah portion, is Parshas Beshalach. It's discussing the Jewish people getting out of Egypt. We're going to focus on the second verse in this week's portion. The second verse of this week's portion starts with an interesting verb. The verb used, the very first word is vayasev. Vayasev means, Emshat, Rashi, Targum says, it means that Kadosh Baruch Hu led them around, like the Hebrew word sovev. Led them around, they're leaving Egypt, not necessarily the straightest route, he led them around. Interesting choice of verb. Whenever there's interesting language, there's room to understand it based on remez. If you look back at our Likras number 1, we discussed what it means. Remez, a different way of looking at the Torah. So we're going to work on what is the remez in this word vayasev in the second verse in this week's Torah portion. Now, to understand it better, we're going to add a medrash. The medrash Rabbah says here a very interesting idea. Medrash says, vayasev, you're using that word. Mikan amru, from here, the sages taught, afilu ani shebisrael tzarech haseba. Even a poor man, every Jewish person, must do haseba, lean left on leil haseder. On the Seder night, when you eat matzah, when you drink wine, you must lean left. Very nice idea. It seems to be the same verb here, same shorish, it seems. Vayasev. The problem is, it's this idea, this medrash has nothing to do with the verse at all. The verse is talking about they're leaving Egypt. Now, when did they leave Egypt? What happened? So, on the night of the 14th of Nisan, 14th of Nisan by day, when it was still daytime, they started the procedure of the Korban Pesach, the sheep. And at nighttime, the beginning of the 15th of Nisan, they ate it. And at midnight, the firstborn of the Egyptians died, and they left Egypt the next day. So now we're talking about the post-Egypt era. They left, and Hashem is leading them around, the Jewish people, out of Egypt. Ultimately, they're going to make it 40 years later to the land of Israel. So it's happening, this verse, from the next day and someplace in the beginning of the 40 years. That's what we're talking about over here. Now, the Medrash said that from this verse we see that the poor man, or really every member of Klal Yisrael, on Leil Seder, on the 15th of Nisan at night, has to lean left when they eat the matzah and drink the wine. Now, it's very nice, that is the halacha, that they have to lean left when they eat the matzah and drink the wine, but it doesn't fit in the verse at all, because the verse is discussing later, after the Seder is over. It's discussing the next day and further. It's not discussing the night of Passover. So this is a question that bothers the Rebbe, the Yismach Moshe, and we're going to work on what is the answer is, how he's going to find an answer here, a remez, to help understand this medrash, which is very hard to understand. So he says, the medrash is bothered by the word vayasev, an interesting verb, and really it doesn't have to say that verb. And you look at the verb in the first verse of this week's parsha, uses a different, more common verb. Ela romes is coming as a hint here that there's not, in addition to Hashem leaning out, there's also a concept called leaning on Leil Seder, which implies the idea of leaning is to lean like a nobleman would lean, to lean and show freedom in a society that has nobility and has serfs and has slaves. So the slaves don't get to lean, they have to work. The nobility gets to lean, they're relaxed, they're in charge. So leaning indicates freedom. Now, Klal Yisrael is being led out of Egypt, and they were slaves there for a long time. So they could have fear in their hearts, and they could be concerned that though they're getting out, maybe the Egyptians are going to chase them, catch them, bring them back, and make the slavery even worse. So their hearts might not be so confident now at the beginning of they themselves leaving Egypt. So therefore, learns the Rebbe Yismach Moshe, so Kadosh Baruch Hu did Heseba. When he led them this way, he had them sit down in the midbar and lean left. Show that you're a free man. And what does it help to do this? It helps to have they understand in their heart and emunah that now that they are freed from Egypt, they will always be essentially free, and the Egyptians will not be able to capture them again. So it means there's two types. There's a literal freedom, there's, let's call it a physical freedom, an external freedom that happens when you get out of trouble, when you get out of Egypt. And then there's the internal freedom when it sinks through a person's thick heart, and he feels and connects to the freedom. And that doesn't have to happen simultaneously. And that's the hint here. Since the Torah uses the word Vayasef, Hashem led them around. He led them around. He said, take a deep breath. Sit down. Lean left. Experience the freedom. Think about you're free. Feel it that you're free. Connect it to your heart that you're free. And if you do this, do the Vayasef, then Hashem says to you, you're really my people. You're the ones. You're going to remember this. And every year after that, when you make the Leil Seder, you're going to be leaning left.